Hey, this is Scott Darby Bonsai. Today we're going to take a look at the Canon Rebel SL3. It's an upgrade, or kind of an upgrade from the SL2 from Canon. I did have the SL2, it was a pretty nice camera, but I did eventually switch to a pair of Canon EOS M50 mirrorless cameras. With the SL3, like I said, it's very similar to the SL2, but they did add 4K video, they changed a few things up and they took a few things out. SL3 has a pretty compact body, is of course very similar to the SL2, but they did change the lines up a little bit. Decent grip in the hands, and then you've got a switch for the on-off button, and it also goes into video from that switch. The general layout is pretty solid. I think when you try to change autofocus points with the standard DSLR features of the camera, it's not super intuitive, but it is in there, so you can use the dial to adjust which focus point you want, or using all of them. On the bottom you've got the battery, which is LPE17, and it also has the SD card slot down there. It's pretty much the same exact thing as the SL2. There is the mic port, which is very nice to have in a camera like this. Cable release port, mini HDMI, and the micro USB port. The cable release port is one thing that M50 does not have, so with the SL3 you do get that benefit. One big omission with this camera is related to the hot shoe. It does not have a center pin. That means third-party flash, basic low-cost flash won't work with this camera. I did talk to someone at a camera shop that I know well, and they know a lot about cameras. They do seem to think that some of the TTL flash from third parties also don't work, so I'm not sure how things will turn out with the SL3 and flash. If that's a big use case for you, you don't want this camera. It's just not a good buy. The SL3, like the M50 and the SL2, have a fully articulating screen that allows you to face the lens with the screen itself. It's a full touch screen. They all work very similarly. You get the full touch interface, being able to change the settings through that screen. Probably one of the best types out there. So if you're doing vlogging, you're doing any type of filming of yourself, having that screen face the lens is nice to have. But you can use it, of course, in photo situations where you want different angles for the screen, get low to the ground and things like that. It's a really nice setup. With autofocus in the live view mode, you do have that full tracking capability, which is nice, and also spot, one point, and zone autofocus. Now it is one extra focus feature compared to the M50. With the built-in flash this time, it doesn't have any type of spring action to it. You can just pull it up with your hand, same as the M50. This camera is a step up to the SL2 in regard to the Wi-Fi capabilities. You get a little bit more, but it is probably very similar to the M50, which has a good solid feature base of the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connectivity. There is the My Menu functionality to this camera. I really don't think it's a great feature, but it is nice to at least be in there if you want to set up a list or multiple lists of settings on a different screen. There are a lot of features geared towards entry-level photographers. You've got these menus to start off that are very basic and informational, which is nice in some situations, but you can switch that to a standard Canon menu layout, which I use personally just to get direct access to functions and features of the camera. There are a lot of creative filters on this camera. They give you various options. Of course, it's all related to JPEG photos. If you shoot RAW, it really is not something you need to bother with too much. There are also a lot of scene modes to the camera. Again, it's a basic feature if you're into those with JPEG photos. With the SL2 and now the SL3, the biggest thing is that it's a standard DSLR. That means EF and EFS lenses directly connect to the camera. Now with the Canon EOS M50, which is mirrorless, you can buy the adapter to connect those EF lenses and EFS lenses to the camera. So you got that old traditional DSLR technology in there and the good mirrorless dual pixel autofocus live view technology in camera. And you just have a lot of extras baked into the camera with the optical viewfinder, the mirror, and all those things that really don't need to be in there these days. Video features are somewhat similar to the Canon EOS M50, but it does subtract 24 frames a second to 1080p, which is a really strange omission, like it is with that hot shoe pin. I have a really hard time suggesting this camera over the M50 and the SL2. If you want something with the traditional layout, I would go for the SL2 if you can find one. It'd probably be a lot cheaper, and it's really not missing things that are super important in my opinion. If you need a specific feature like the 4K, which doesn't get the dual pixel autofocus, but it is in the SL3, or maybe a few other little adjustments and things that might be important to you, you want to check it out. But I would personally go with the SL2, but I would actually go for the M50 in most situations. You have the electronic viewfinder, You have a smooth transition between photo and video, and there's just a lot of benefits with the M50 compared to these other two cameras. The only thing you gain, I think, that's important is the cable release. If you're going to do time lapses and things of that nature, I do think the SL3 is a decent option. But so there are some use cases where the SL3 might work out better, but again, I would really look hard at the Canon EOS M50. Thanks to Cameracraft in Rockford, Illinois for letting me try this camera out at their shop. I'm Scott from Photography Bonsai. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider subscribing. That helps me out a lot. Likes and shares help out a lot as well. Thanks again.